Well, hello again, and welcome again to another episode of Down to Earth, but Heavenly Minded. I'm your host, Risch, on Internet Radio. And today again, we're going to be continuing on in current issues, and it's by Daniel C. Snaddon, and the name of this episode is The Gift of Giving. So with that said, let us start our broadcast.
Current Issues, The Gift of Giving, by Daniel C. Snaddon. Romans 12 verses 6-8, Matthew 12 verses 6-8. He that gives to the Lord, let him give with liberality, lavishly, extensively. Our giving is just as important as our serving, teaching, exhortation, administration, showing mercy. Same rules for giving. Give with sincerity. Matthew 6 verses 1-4. Take heed that you give not your gifts alone before men, to be seen of them. The act of giving is an intensely private affair. We must give to the Lord unostentatiously. Verse 2, do not sound a trumpet before you, to have your glory of them. Describe the actions of the Pharisees in the synagogues and streets. They loved the applause of men, this was their reward. Verse 3, when you give, do not let your right hand know what your left hand does. Graphic figure of speech. Our giving is a strictly confidential transaction between the individual and God and should be done unobtrusively. Verse 4, when the principle of secrecy is applied to the principle of giving, God, who sees in secret, will reward you openly. The judgment seat. The widow's mites, Mark 12. The widow of Zarephath, 1 Kings 17. Experiences in Florida, Bahamas, Mom and Dad. Hislop. We must give of our time, resources, and possessions, systematically, liberally, cheerfully. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 2. Paul tells us to give as the Lord has prospered us. Has anyone been disappointed who has given to the Lord? Tithes and offerings R.G. Luterni, Malachi's Day. The Lord is speaking. Luke 6:38. Give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For with the same measure that you measure, it shall be measured unto you. George Muller. If you want to be rich, give. If you want to be poor, grasp. If you want abundance, scatter. If you want to be needy, hoard. A man there was, and some did count him mad, the more he gave away, the more he had. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 6. But this I say, he that sows sparingly, shall reap sparingly, he that sows generously will reap generously. The law of the harvest. A farmer reaps out of all proportion to what he sows. A farmer was known for his generous giving. His friends could not figure out how he could give away so much and yet remain prosperous. They asked him, how is it that you give more than any of us yet you always seem to have more to give? The farmer said, that is easy to explain. I keep shoveling into God's bin and God keeps shoveling back into mine, and God has the bigger shovel. We cannot outgive God. Galatians 5, be not deceived. Verse 7, our giving should not be grudgingly or reluctant, or of necessity, or under compulsion. It is possible to give and not be happy about it. It is possible to give, under pressure of emotional appeals, or the fear of public embarrassment. Beloved, God loves the cheerful giver. Joyful, hilarious giver. An old German said, in broken English, I likes to give willingly, when I give willingly, it enjoys me so much I give again. The delights of giving. Mark 9:41. The smallest kindness, a cup of water, will not go unrewarded. God knows the smallest detail of our lives, the hairs of our head are numbered. The early Christians shared their possessions with each other. Barnabas, Acts 4. Acts 5. Ananias, Sapphira. Deceptive, first sin in church, hypocrisy. Unfulfilled vows, broken promises. Consider the consequences. Our rewards for giving may be more or a spiritual nature. God in His sovereignty may also give material blessings as well. He cannot fail, for He is God. Psalm 37 verse 25. I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Sometimes the righteous seems to be forsaken as they are called to pass through the fire. Challenge to the local church. Malachi 3 verse 10. Bring all the tithes into God's storehouse, give to God what is really His. Prove me now. If we comply with His commands, He has promised to open the floodgates of heaven and pour out a blessing that we will not be able to contain. Challenge to the individual. Exodus 4. Describe Moses in his total inadequacy. I am not eloquent, I am slow of speech and tongue. God said, What is that in your hand? Moses replied, A rod. Moses gave the tool of his calling to God, a shepherd's crook. It was all he had. That rod became the rod of God, through it God's awesome power flowed. Plagues, Red Sea, refitteth, rock. How many of you have said, I don't have anything that God could use? God is looking at you, my child. What is that in your hand? God was the most unlikely things. Boy's lunch, David's sling, Dorcas' need, Rahab's string, a little slave girl. Whatever you have, will you give it to the Lord? Quote Romans 12 verse 1, a living sacrifice. Winston Lodge. 1966. O Lord, I give you everything I have, what more can I give? Son, daughter, give me your heart. When I survey the wondrous cross, etc. Shall have my heart, my life, my all. Dan Crawford was a lad of 19 who, when he left for Africa, he was an only son. Among the group who met to see him off was his mother. A friend spoke a word of comfort to her, she replied, He spared not his son. 22 years passed before she saw him again. He served the Lord for this period without a furlough. He buried his son there, and amid indescribable loneliness, stricken with fever again and again, many times his life was despaired of, as he lived, toiled, and suffered under the blazing African sun. At age 56, he died. But because he gave his life to the Lord, as a living sacrifice, many, many Africans will spend eternity in heaven.
The end.